Hello, and welcome to the Ended Up in Vegas podcast. I'm Nikki.
I'm Megan.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about what we saw at the Kitchen and Bath show at the Las Vegas Convention Center. We had first attempted to have this podcast be live from the showroom floor, but being first-time podcasters, that didn't exactly go as planned.
Some technical difficulties.
Yeah, a little bit of a microphone issue with my mic just deciding to turn off mid-walk.
Yeah, whenever it felt like it.
Yeah.
That's always nice.
So we're going to splice in some of that footage so you can see what we were seeing on the showroom floor. First, we would like to thank Vinglace. So these are our very special tumblers that we'll have on the show, on the podcast. So not the average tumbler, because inside it actually pulls out of the stainless steel casing and it's glass. So Vin, or wine, Glace.
I love that because I'm not a huge fan of drinking out of stainless steel.
Yeah.
I like that it's like a more natural, feels like you're drinking out of a glass.
For sure. And that's the idea behind it, is that it doesn't take in any of the steel flavor into a flavored drink like this. So
I love it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for sending us those. So first things first, there were some hits and misses at the show for sure. We have been showing a little bit on our Instagram, but I think for both of us, there were some standouts, and one of them was the Kohler booth. Mm-hmm. They always bring a good game. They were voted best in show as we were in the booth. So that was really awesome to see. I was like, do you think they tried?
It was really cool to be there right at that moment. It was like we had like not within 10 minutes of that, we were like, I think Kohler had the best. And I feel weird even calling it a booth.
Right.
Like booth doesn't even feel adequate to describe the massive space that they encompassed and all the things that they did, you know. And the first time we went through, we didn't even see the second half initially. And then when we came back around, there was just so much to it and had this kind of live, natural, organic feel that I really liked.
Yeah.
But then to be there right at that moment, like moments later saying like, you won, like best in show, or we won best in show. And it was just like, there was such great energy. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I have been actually going to the Kitchen and Bath show for quite some time. I worked marketing events. I was like a host interviewer for the convention partner with the convention center for doing all video that was like through common areas of the convention center. So I have been going to that show for so long, and never have I seen the type of build outs that they're doing now that are, you know, you're getting buyers and designers and people who are very capable of turning a product into a vision. Mm-hmm. But when you're able to go into a booth and really feel like this is a home, this is inspiring, this is warm and cozy, I would like to sit and have a drink here.
Yeah.
That's what they had a lot of. And then they had this whole nostalgic experience in the back with all of these live, like beautiful roses. And I didn't even realize that the roses were real until I was like doing video, and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful, like looking through my phone. But then I'm like, oh, this smells amazing. And you're like, yeah, they're real.
Either. I think you don't assume. You wouldn't assume going into something like that they would use I mean, and it's substantial. You'll see in the video, it is a lot of floral.
Yeah.
And we were standing there, you're like, this is real. And I was like, it was just below the subconscious. I was like, you're right. It is real. Oh my gosh. And it was just so incredible. The creativity in that from the display that they did up front with all the rain showers and all the rain heads and, you know, it had kind of this like jungle feel, was so cool. Yeah. And then they had some really cool stuff with some of the, like they had an original 1981 toilet. And, you know, so apparently I'm not the only good thing that came from 1981. But it was like really cool. They had the vintage stuff. And I don't know, we'll have to look it up and see what they ended up deciding. They're bringing back a color from the past, and they had a vote that was going on for that. So that's really cool.
I'm really hoping it's peach.
Yeah, you know,
peach is my signature.
I think peach this year makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I thought that the most innovative things that I saw at the show were also in Kohler's booth, namely the double rain heads. Mm-hmm. There was a shower that they had on that they were presenting there with like 2 double rain heads. Mm-hmm. And then I saw just all of the stonework that they did on all of like the trim components of the shower and the kitchen that we loved. And then they had the faucet that was ceiling mounted.
Yes, it's the Suspend, I think it's what it's called.
Yeah. So the Pura Suspend is a hose, essentially, to your faucet that hangs over the sink. And he was showing how you can actually move it around so that you don't need a pot filler. And it turns on a dial on the ceiling. And then there is a puck that is probably, 6 inches tall?
Yeah, probably 4 or 5 inches tall. It's a small, looks like maybe a small speaker, portable speaker kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's a dial that controls the temperature and the flow. And then you can also turn, I don't know if the turning the actual on and off is on the actual faucet itself, but the puck handles all the temperature gauge. And that was interesting.
Right.
I think like it's a really cool thing. I kind of question in like practicality as someone who's in the kitchen, how that would work.
Yeah.
And I know if you have kids, right? How many times have you lost the remote?
Yeah, exactly. But I think most people, when I put it on Instagram, most people responded to it in a way like, yeah, that's going to be too messy for my family.
Yeah.
Or, just too much of a threat rather. But I think that it was innovative. And I think that that's what the show is supposed to bring, is new ideas and things that you love and hate. And that is the thing about design. You're supposed to love it or you're supposed to hate it.
Yeah. And I think like seeing them be creative, pushing the boundaries of what people are doing is what kind of the spirit of the whole thing is about. Right. And I think there's so many things that came about that maybe people were resistant to the beginning. I'm sometimes a slow adopter for some things. And so maybe I wouldn't necessarily do it in that execution, but if I had something that was like, like if you go into a bathroom, like if it was sensor based, if there were a few maybe minor tweaks, I could see something like that being really functional in if you've been in the kitchen and your hands are messy, not having to go in and, turn on a faucet or do something. I think that there's something to that. So maybe that's not the execution most people would go with, but it's going to inspire some creativity that maybe cause people to think outside of the box and what they're doing in their own homes. Yeah.
I mean, I almost think it would be kind of cool to integrate something like that, an idea like that, into a shower. Because when you think of a shower, we don't have that option on any shower head to remove it, spray around the shower pan or the basin of the tub. So to give you that flexibility for whatever you're using the shower tub for.
Yeah, if you have pets or, like you said, just cleaning the shower. I mean, you do obviously removable shower heads aren't that original, but some of them aren't really the best for actually doing a nice, good clean. So there's something there, I think.
Yeah. So, we were giving ideas to all of the manufacturers. One of the things that I think the two of us, when we walked into Toto, so this was a miss for us. Toto makes one of the best toilets on the market. I've had clients before say they will not put any other toilet in their home besides a Toto toilet. Phenomenal on how they look at the technology of cleaning and the approach to the comfort and, look of the product. But there was one thing that they rolled out this year that was a miss for us. So I'm going to let you explain it.
Are we talking about the remote?
Yeah.
It was so crazy because, it's almost something that like you might not think about, but when you really start thinking about it, so there's this large kind of narrow, it's probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide, 8 to 10 inches long. It's really bulky. And I think like when you think about like something as simple as a toilet, like there's a lever to flush, and that's usually most toilets. This is pretty elaborate with a lot of crevices and buttons, and it reminded me of like an old big screen TV remote. It was big and bulky, and then you have to think about where you're going to put that in your bathroom. And like for me, I like very clean, minimal, especially in the toilet area. I don't want anything that anybody really has to touch as much as possible. Even when you think, we didn't talk about this, but like think about it when you're sick. Like you're trying to wipe down spaces if you have somebody in your household. Like, so it was just kind of a funky implementation. What do you think?
Yeah. And I think that most toilets that have any type of device that's connected are attached to the wall. Because going back to walking away with a remote for a TV, nobody wants to walk away with the remote to the toilet.
Right.
And something that you're holding in your hand and not just touching or tapping on the wall. I was very surprised that it wasn't touch screen. I was very curious. I made sure to ask, like, do the buttons actually work on it? Because I don't really want to push anything.
Right.
Because again, it goes back to crevices and what can get caught in there? I don't want to know. You know,
Yeah.
like I have little nieces and nephews, and it was a huge wand. Like it was this big. We have to show it to you.
Yeah, it might even be 10 or 11 inches. I'm going off of like, just memory, but it was very large.
And not ergonomic to
No.
like turn in one hand, right? So you're then holding this device with two hands. It's not only one-sided on the front part of the remote. It also has a top feature. So
and then a back and a screen on the back side as well.
And then a screen on the back side. And I was thinking about this morning. If you're going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, which I do pretty much every night because I guzzle water, I can't see. They didn't light up that screen on the back. And that's where I think the temperature gauge is. So if you want to sit down on a heated toilet, then you're missing out on that in the middle of the night potentially.
Yeah.
Or you're fumbling with this large thing
In the middle of the night.
in the middle of the night. Yeah. So I just didn't think that it was well executed. I thought just the handling of it, the fact that you can't just push it on the wall or tap it gently and have it be attached to the wall was a huge disadvantage to that product. And just the whole aesthetic of it reminded me of a 70s 8-track player. The finish, I'm pretty sure they replicated off of a really old Sony product.
They probably borrowed the buttons.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure,
And if they were recycled, I could deal with that story.
Yeah.
Like I like a good story for a product, but that was not the story.
I will say though that the thought that they put into to their toilets, all the things that they've thought through, you can tell they're really on the forefront of making that a better experience. It's, it's not the most simple, but I think they've really done a good job in thinking through how people use their toilets. They've got a misting function, their tornado flush. So things that they will help keep toilets cleaner longer. And I think that's the stuff I left that booth thinking like, yeah, I want a Toto toilet. Like I would never usually think of spending that much money on something that, like that, but I can see the value in it.
Yeah. And we did get a really great interview with one of the reps at Toto. Listen to this.
Nearest remote control. That's essentially the same for pretty much all of our models except for the RS model. So the LS and the AS use this remote control. It's a wireless remote control, radio frequency. The different functions that are available on it. You have, if you look at the top here, you have for solid waste, for liquid waste. This is our e-water feature, which you press it and this cleans off the wand anytime you decide to. This adjusts the presets. There's 4 adjustable presets. So every time you tap it, it goes from 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you hit it again, it goes back to the beginning. These are 2 individual buttons. One lifts up the seat itself, and the other one lifts up the lid. Okay. So it used to just be one button that was tied into both, but now we separated them. On the front here, this is your stop button. So whatever feature you have on, whether it's the dryer that's over here, the female wash for front wash, or the rear wash. Okay. These 2 buttons here, these are the same indication for rear wash, but this is a wide front wash and this is a soft rear wash. This adjusts your pressure, so no matter which feature you have on, this adjusts the amount of pressure. Increases the pressure, this decreases the pressure. This adjusts the position of the wand from front to back. And then whatever spray you have on, you have an oscillating feature or you have a pulsating feature. I would say the oscillating is probably the most popular feature that's available. And then anytime you want to adjust the temperature of the seat or the dryer or the sprayer, that needs to be done on the back of the remote control. So this right here, I'm not sure if you've heard this from a lot of computer people before, but that symbol is actually referred to as a hamburger symbol. Yep. Those 3 lines, you have your buns, and in the middle you have your meat. So if you press that there, that essentially, this is your temperature here. If you press this one here, which there, it takes you to the menu. It's not backlit, we apologize, but you can always adjust any of the features. You have manual cleaning, which does an e-water spray on the bowl. Sorry. It also gives you the ability of cleaning the wand manually yourself. Okay. You have energy saver mode. Energy saver mode gives the user the ability of controlling the energy for the heater, for the inline heater for the water, or for the seat. I would say that the seat probably doesn't draw as much energy as the inline heater does for the water.
Okay.
But it gives you two options there. I'm just trying to press it down. It's not working here. Sorry, I apologize. Okay. Well, you can do other things like auto open and close the lid. You can shut that off. You can also program it. Let's say it's a man just using it, which, if he's single, he can program the lid and the seat to open up every time he approaches it.
Got it. Okay.
If he's married, obviously would not advise that. But it has you can shut the auto flush feature off if you want to. There's an auto flush feature as well that you can turn on and off. And those are pretty much all the features available. You can shut the night light off and the bowl light off if you want to as well. Those are probably the last two things. So to shut the unit off completely, you hold down the power button like this, and it shuts the unit all the way off, which we highly advise if people are going on vacation.
Okay, where do you want to go next?
Should we talk about cafe and appliances and appliance finishes?
Yeah, you want to start or you want me to?
Sure. So I think it was really interesting. One of the first booths that we walked in was GE's cafe line. And it was really neat. They had it all decked out as kind of like a runway theme. So they were using a lot of the colors and textures that you're seeing in a lot of handbags and shoes and jewelry. And that was the inspiration for their booth and also for some of the finishes that they're offering on their line. And one of the things I really liked is they're really expanding their line of handles and pulls. It was a really interesting booth. What did you think?
Yeah, I love the way that they approached telling the story of the new finishes. And you have a little swatch box of the new brushed brass that they have, and then they have a new matte black. So the great thing about this line is that you're not having to question the integrity of a new product rolling out.
Right.
They're going to continue. I've actually owned the cafe line since its first year. So I think it only came out within the past 6 years, probably 7 years. And the way that they're approaching the customization options is really better than, they have in years past, because it's the same unit. They're improving on the base product of the unit, but then you have these options to change the finish of the outer casing, whether it's black or the matte white. And then you can do now, 5 or is it 6? 6 different finishes.
Yeah, so they've got brushed brass, they've got a brushed bronze, a brushed black, a brushed copper, a brushed stainless, and then they also have a flat black. And this is really neat. And the thing I like about this is their white is pretty great. And then I feel like this is something you could, I don't know how interchangeable they are later on, but I feel like there's a lot less commitment in doing an entirely black kitchen.
Sure.
So you can have those accents. And I think had this been available when I was remodeling my kitchen, I probably would have done something like this.
Yeah, and that champagne bronze, it's the more coppery one that started out. The one in the center, I think.
So this is brushed copper?
Yeah. So the brushed copper, this is actually on the original handles as the cafe tab underneath. So it's been interesting to see clients the last few years. I have several clients with cafe products integrate a lot of different metallics into their kitchen, because they have this one little element where it's like, oh, we have this piece of copper, we can bring some other piece of warm bronze or champagne bronze, or even in some lines a brushed brass that is more warm toned into the kitchen. So there are just so many opportunities with that line, and I definitely think as an owner of the products that there's still a certain way to go as far as what they do to innovate, like the water feature of the refrigerator.
That refrigerator was amazing. They had a full LED backlit light in the back. They have a water pitcher, which is nice because I have a KitchenAid fridge, which has the interior. I didn't want any water dispensers on the outside, so I have an interior button. But let me tell you, when I have to go in and fill up a glass of water, I'm standing there with my fridge doors open. And
you too.
Yeah.
48 hours.
Yeah. It feels like forever. Or if you're doing a dog bowl or anything that's of decent size.
Right.
So I like that they have, it's an integrated pitcher. It fills up on its own. I can't remember if it holds a gallon or a gallon and a half or something. And then you can just take that out and use it as you want and then put it back in and it refills automatically. I thought that was really innovative.
I did too. I thought the pitcher, I don't know, was it a gallon?
Maybe. I may not have been that much. I was thinking a gallon or a gallon and a half, but it was a decent size. Might have been half a gallon. It was a good size.
I thought the pitcher could have been bigger.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would love to see, I have a bit of an issue with the ice maker in my unit. There is like one block of ice that forms in the back, I think from like a little bit of water maybe dripping down, that forms kind of like an iceberg in the back. So, and I know reviews, and I can vouch for this, reviews for the refrigerator is that it's a little bit loud.
Okay.
So, there are so many hurdles. Like when you think about innovating a product like that, like there are so many components that people are spending thousands of dollars on something are looking for, as they should, rightfully. You know?
Do you have problems? Do you have the same type of ice tray that was in that one where it's like an open tray in the bottom freezer? Does ice go everywhere in your refrigerator?
No.
Okay. I have a KitchenAid. And let me tell you, there's constantly ice in the bottom. It flies out everywhere anytime. And maybe it's my kids are messy or whatever, but there's constantly ice everywhere in the bottom of it.
Well, my sister has the refrigerator that makes the ice balls, and they come out. You can hear them coming down like ski balls. They're literally, but yeah, I mean, like that's what people are looking for. They also had a new ice maker. I think that's one of those things where you're like, yes, next kitchen,
yes,
custom ice maker.
I liked the dishwasher drawers that they had too.
Yes.
That was really innovative. I mean, I'm sure I've seen it before, but Fisker Paycal was one of the first ones that did the dishwasher drawers. But it was nice because you can have the top part loading and then separate from the bottom. I think that's something I might do in a future kitchen.
Yeah.
Or double dishwashers. That's a big thing that we're seeing in a lot of houses now.
Exactly. Yeah. Another thing that we saw is in the JennAir booth, they had a full panel leather refrigerator.
That's so crazy.
And I didn't know I needed a leather refrigerator.
Now I need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have the interior, that obsidian backing on the refrigerator. So just everything against that black backing looks so like colorful.
I feel like they really surprised me. Their booth was really understated, but I felt like their refrigerator kind of blew me away. Just the quality. Black isn't something I would normally consider going with, but it just was so clean and nice. You could see the quality in the materials. Of course, you would expect a lot from JennAir.
Yeah.
But everything that they did was really classy.
Yeah. And they're one of those brands who you can rely on for something that's panel ready and to match with other products that aren't part of the same appliance package, that you can get away with knowing like, okay, this is going to last for quite a bit of time because, again, they have honed the execution of that product for so long.
Now, what did you think? I think one of the ones that really stood out to me was like Signature Kitchen Suite. I felt like their display and their booth was not quite to the same level as, at least not as decorated as Cafe.
Yeah.
But I feel like they had a really, really incredible display on their range that was really beautiful.
Yeah.
I really like their stuff.
Yeah, I think it was innovative. Again, I'm not sure how far it will go in the market when you're looking at, cooking different things. For me, when I see the visual, the graphics were beautiful.
Yeah.
But I think when you're limited to what the graphics are on the
4 or 5 things, I think
range,
it wasn't very much.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely technology driven. And I think they did a good job on that. I'm not sure how broad of a, client they will have with that.
And it was something new too. They had a chromium cooktop, and that's something I need to do a little research on afterwards because I've not seen that before. Have you?
No, and we saw a lot of different cooktops. We saw cooktops on the countertops, cooktops like set into the countertops that were mounted below.
I guess I mean griddle, the chromium griddle that they had.
Oh yeah.
Right. I haven't seen that material used in a griddle or anything like that. I've seen it in other things, but that was interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what you go to the show for, is to see what kind of other materials something's being made out of. You're like, okay, how did that get, done that way? The exact question with the tub that I had, we saw the $16,000 beautiful, what was it? A pinky peach tub.
Gorgeous.
And that's what I went there looking for. The bath section usually has had in the past a ton more tub options. And quite frankly, from a design standpoint, I've just been getting so bored with tubs.
Yeah.
And finding a tub that is something like, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't understand why it's so hard.
Yeah, I don't know. And I felt like there were some interesting things that I saw there. That one really kind of surprised me. But then when you start thinking about the practicality, one of, getting it delivered. It weighs about as much as a small Volkswagen. And you need a crane plus at least 10 people to get it in. You've got to think about structural engineering and weight support. And then you mentioned it was something I hadn't even thought about, keeping it warm. Like some of those things look really beautiful, but in all practicality, they're not necessarily the most functional.
Yeah.
I was surprised, though, that we didn't see more. That was one area, I think that, and then in some of the finishes, like tiles, I was surprised that we didn't see more innovation in some of those things.
Yeah, and going back to the tubs, I think it's another thing with there's so much cement on the market now in all products that I want to know what is in your product that makes that cement not crack at any, little thing. And you don't want to buy a $16,000 product and have it cracking. Yeah.
Or what happens if it gets damaged in delivery? And
Exactly.
That's a huge thing to think about.
Two things that I think, one, I want to talk about Z-Line because I love Z-Line products for, being based in Nevada, especially. They have their own plant in China, but all of their stuff is mainly designed out of their Tahoe office. And so I loved the the polished brass. And it was hard to keep clean. I think we noticed that that on the polished, all polished finishes are that way.
Yeah.
But they did have a fingerprintless, I'm probably poorly labeling it.
They call it, it's like a fingerprint proof, or it's a I can't remember what they actually call it, but they do have that stainless. It's a little bit different from their brushed stainless.
Yeah, and it didn't leave any marks, but it did have a different type of pattern on the stainless. So if you're comfortable with that and it doesn't bother you, I don't think it bothered me per se, but I definitely thought it looked different. I think we both did.
It definitely looked different. And I used we used their brushed stainless in a recent house. And there was a decision that was made at one time when we were ordering the appliances because the hood was already in, and the hood was their traditional brushed stainless. And there was a question as to whether we should use this fingerprintless one. And we made the decision to go with what was matching what was already there. And I was really glad that we didn't, because it would have been noticeably different. Now, maybe it's a little bit darker. So one, it's not as bright as their stainless.
Yeah.
But two, when you really look at it, there is a noticeable pattern, if you will,
Yes.
in the way that it looks. So I think for the right implementation, but you would want to make sure that you're not mixing, as I don't think they mix and match as a perfect match.
Right. And I also loved that they had a whole line of cookware that was with the brass, with a brushed brass finish on the handle. And then they had a whole line of
German
specialty,
knives.
yeah, just German specialty knives. So that's a real complete idea. And, this is a team that's thinking of how people cook, how the kitchen functions in your home. And I think, in a macro perspective, that's what you want to show up at a trade show and see is like everybody at a company is on board with like vision, strategy,
Yes.
execution, design model, the whole thing.
Yeah, and how it lives and how consumers are using it
Right.
and how they live with it, because it's more than just a cooking appliance. It's really like, the kitchen's the heart of how most people live in their home. So you can tell that some of the appliance vendors and some of them have really thought that through.
And we didn't go into the Monogram booth, but a friend of mine did send some photos. But we checked out the refrigerator, the Monogram refrigerator that is the brushed brass paneling in the
pretty
Kohler
incredible.
booth. Yeah.
I liked that kitchen a lot. That's where we saw the suspend faucet, and that kitchen was really impressive. The appliances looked great. I love how they're integrating the finishes with the poles and the panels, and that kitchen itself was really impressive. They did something really original with the cabinetry, and it was almost like a waterfall edge that was continued on between each bank of drawers or cabinets.
And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't the handle on the refrigerator door, wasn't that leather? It's like a leather.
Yeah, so
metal.
it was there were brass handles, but there was also a leather wrapped, pole portion. So it was really beautiful. And I didn't even notice it the first time we looked at it. It was the second time.
Yeah.
It was very subtle.
Yeah, so did I.
I think that those two really knocked it out of the park for me.
For sure. I think the other most innovative thing that I saw was at Murphy. When we walked by, I was like, why are there random holes in that wood, Murphy door? But they put a piece of Kevlar inside so it could be a safety room. And they were showing the size of bullet, not punctures, because it didn't puncture the Kevlar, but it did blow out the wood. So the impact of the bullet hit the wood and blew the wood out in a certain diameter.
Yeah.
But then the Kevlar was still intact. And it was only a small, by using that kind of a product in a door like that, it was only a tiny layer between pieces of wood in the door.
And it makes it a lot lighter. So if you were to try to go in and build like a panic room or a safety room with steel, that door is going to be hundreds, if not more pounds.
Right.
This is something that was really light. I thought that was really innovative. And the one thing I liked about their display was it got me thinking about how sometimes we do, artificial cabinets into a pantry. I feel like something like that could be way more functional because you still have a doorway, but you could still be using the outside of it for something that's functional and it looks a little more finished. You're not going to see any light coming through. I liked that implementation. I think if you want to have a pantry that's somewhat hidden.
Yeah. Give us all of your drywalled pantries and we'll take them out and put in a Murphy door, a hidden room.
Murphy door, Murphy pantry. There was I thought that was one of the most innovative spaces, the way that they did that. And obviously they had Murphy beds and some of the other things that they're most known for, but that was really original.
Yeah. Well, and I did a similar door in a kitchen recently to that style of a secret door. And it's hard to execute. And a company that has been doing that and making that their specialty niche for so long is the type of product that you want in your home to know that it's going to, hold up to standard. It's going to hold up over time. Yep. I think we have been in so many custom homes where like, wow, this was done right.
Yeah.
And that is something that helps hold resale value, not something that is DIY to make it look like it or to make it feel like it. There are so many components that go into how they patent these products and how they design and engineer them to function in a home.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, great show. Otherwise.
Yeah, it was a great show. It was a lot of space. There were a lot of vendors there. I'm excited for you guys to see some of the stuff that we saw and like to see kind of what your favorites are and what you think of some of the things that we show.
And we thank you for joining us for this episode of Ended Up in Vegas. We'll see you next time.